Hello, film friends, friends of film, and everyone in between. Welcome to the Film Folklore Podcast. I am Jed Props, and I am joined today by Zoe Props.
Hey.
And producer Justin Sound.
Hi.
Chris and Joe are not with us today. Joe was rumored to be near Niagara Falls with Jacqueline Hyde. Zoe, where is Chris?
Well, Chris has got a new job as a exterminator, and there's a big rat infestation somewhere, and he's got to do that, you know?
That
hard
makes
work,
sense.
And it's a noble profession.
It is a noble profession.
But it's just a side hustle, you know?
Yeah. It also addresses Chris's love of one suit, like one-piece jumpers.
Mm-hmm. And the pumpy thing, the squirt.
Yeah, like
the squirter.
Like a Hudson spray or whatever. Yeah, sure.
Sure.
I mean, Chris is really the one to have to speak to it because he's the one always going off on how much he likes that stuff.
Very knowledgeable.
Yeah. I mean, Chris, God, I think it was like a week ago, he was like, oh, that's a Simonson 4200 spray you got there. And I was like, whoa, man, that is crazy. I had to look at the packaging, but he was right.
Yeah, he peppers it in anywhere he goes. He loves talking about exterminating various rodents and
we'll have to ask him about the rat
creatures.
later.
Yeah.
All right, well, guess what? It's a legendary lore. Another bonkers behind the scenes. Before we get into it, I wanted to tell y'all a funny little incident.
Oh.
I have been binge listening and catching up with another podcast called Morbid. If you like the true crime world and you are unfamiliar with them, I highly recommend. Have y'all heard of them? I mean, Justin, you know because we've talked about it, but Zoe, have you?
No, I don't think so. Or if I have, I didn't know.
So I actually modeled some ideas for our own podcast based off of them, and I think there's 5 total podcasts that I secretly paid homage to. That's how in the film industry we dodged the bullet of saying we ripped off. But one, it's become very quickly one of my favorites. And do y'all have? We've never really talked about it much. Like, are y'all listening to podcasts on your own, or I mean, as we're obviously recording?
Yeah, I'm
this
listening to one right now. I'm listening to Conan.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, Conan O'Brien.
That's right. We talked about
I'm
it.
listening to that.
Another great one.
A lot.
Do y'all have any favorites? I mean, obviously besides this one. Am I right?
That one, yeah, I love the Conan thing, but I'll listen to like Radiolab. You know what I mean?
Radiolab's great.
And then like the specialty ones that are like the limited series.
Oh yeah,
you know,
a lot of good limited series.
Yeah, the like, S-Town, whatever
S-Town,
that. Whatever happened
one.
to Richard Simmons? Richard
Simmons, the exercise guy?
Yes, that's
okay.
his name. Yeah. That
New
was
Orleans
a good one.
native.
Wait, did
Richard
something
Simmons.
happen to him?
You know, on the podcast.
Well,
Exactly. What happened? Interesting podcast.
all the people
I like
got
that
skinny,
kind of like
so he didn't have anyone to work out with.
Yeah. No, it's actually kind of sad and weird. But yes, yeah, that kind of stuff.
Oh.
Whoa.
All right. What you're hearing right now is a standard New Orleans day.
This could be a funeral or a parade
Oh yeah, that's true.
or both.
It is. It's definitely
Chris. His rat infestation has gotten out of hand and it's running down the streets, riding a rat king.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was a man in a rat suit or a rat, to be honest, that just went by.
Yeah. Well,
So, Justin, what about you?
Favorite podcasts?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love a lot of comedy stuff. I listen to a lot of comedy podcasts, but I think my favorite is one called Ear Hustle.
Oh, that sounds fun.
And it's hosted by a woman and a guy who was previously incarcerated and now is no longer incarcerated, but he started producing a podcast while he was locked up.
Huh.
And it's just everyday life in prisons. across
Whoa.
America.
Wow, that's all right. I might have to give that a listen.
Yeah.
cool.
Super interesting
That
stuff.
sounds up my alley. So this was a funny coincidence. While researching today's story, I actually stumbled upon a Morbid episode because I was listening to them while typing up. And they had an episode about this very movie. What are the odds? So shout out to the ladies over at Morbid. And if you want to hear their version of today's topic, please go give them a listen as well. Because today we will be discussing the 1939 MGM classic, The Wizard of Oz, Raining Asbestos, and the problematic German little people. That is what we are calling this one, and it is a doozy like they all are. So I feel safe to ask, have y'all seen this movie? And I'm going to look at Zoe.
I've seen it. I've actually seen it.
As we established in
I'm
another
up to
episode.
1942. This
Right.
came out in 1939. So yes,
Right.
I've obviously seen it. Anything past 1942, I haven't.
Oh, I thought we were going by when it takes place, when it's set.
Oh,
Well, when the hell is it set?
Probably 1942.
wait.
Well, that's where I'm at.
Okay, good.
Does that mean the first thing you ever watched was the Roland Emmerich movie 10,000 BC?
Obviously. That and Nosferatu.
That very accurate movie, 10,000 BC. Anyways, so fun trivia right out of the gate. MGM outbid Fox for the rights to The Wizard of Oz. And if Fox had made this movie, Shirley Temple, not Judy Garland, would have been cast as Dorothy. So keep that in mind as you constantly pick up your collective jaws off the floor. Because, Judy Garland, wow, we're going to get into it. So sources for today's episode, slashfilm.com, a Huffington Post article, Far Out Magazine, parade.com, and even the ladies over at Morbid. I took a couple tidbits from them, and I'll put all that in the notes on the episode page. I need to start being more specific. So where do we begin with this? Man, so this is essentially one giant tale of abuse. Awful, awful abuse. And keeping 1939 into perspective, I guess, maybe will help a little bit with it. But I don't know. This might be the first time on the show I have to say trigger warning for some people that could be listening. There's some pretty rough stuff in here.
Yeah,
So,
abusive.
I mean, it's
All kinds of people, specifically young women in Hollywood. So.
Yeah.
Yay.
Well, we're going to start off with costumes and makeup. And we're going to get into it with our iconic heroes. So let's see. We got our Cowardly Lion. You got your Tin Man. You got your Scarecrow. You got your little Dorothy. And you got her little dog person, Toto.
Her little dog, too. God.
And their little dog, too. So the Cowardly Lion was played by actor Burt Lahr. His lion costume was made of real lion hair. And I can promise you that at least one lion was definitely harmed in the making of this movie.
Why?
Because
They're like, it's easier to just kill a lion
I read...
and put it on him than any other hair at all.
So I to be clear, I didn't read that they murdered a lion to do it, but just every source I was reading about the real lion hair and everything, and I'm like, but where else would you have gotten it? You know, like you're in Los Angeles. There's not a dead lion laying around. Or any lions at the zoo up for euthanization because we need one over here. You know, like, so it just doesn't.
Also, like a lion's mane, so like a large lion, not some easy to kill baby lion.
Yeah,
you know?
this it doesn't bode well. We'll say it that way.
No.
So there are a little bit of conflicting stories to the weight of the costume, but it was somewhere around 90 to 100 pounds. Every day he was drenched in sweat, causing the suit to be soaked, and it stunk terribly. Costumers had to work to dry out the suit at the end of each day. Maybe that weight discrepancy actually has something to do with, are they weighing it soaking wet or dry? Ugh. But because they couldn't do touch-ups for some reason, this is when we could use a makeup rep, but something about his makeup was difficult to apply, and so Burt was forced to live off a diet of milkshakes and soups until he eventually had to demand to get touch-ups after lunch. So eventually he won out.
Oh, he's sweating his ass off.
Yeah.
I'd imagine. I mean, I don't know if that helps with makeup.
Yeah, I mean, it's I couldn't find
it, but if you just keep sweating, then it's just going to keep coming.
I was curious to know what kind of weight loss like these people experience, but I couldn't find anything on it.
Gosh, I'm just looking up his costume right now. I'm like, oh yeah, they really did do the whole
Yeah.
lion thing.
1939.
It's a whole lion.
Yeah. So Ray Bolger played the Scarecrow, and while his costume was more forgiving than the others, he had prosthetics on his face that were basically glued onto his face every day, and they left groove lines in his face that took almost a year to eventually heal and go away. Not to mention whatever that 1939 adhesive was certainly not like today's standards. So,
Oh wow! But it took a year to go away. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Just I'm thinking about like nurses, masks, wearing like
yeah.
those.
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
things,
yeah.
all, like all
During,
the time. But those
COVID.
aren't glued on, and you're, I don't know, maybe not in them as long. I don't know.
Yeah. And Buddy Ebsen was originally cast as the Tin Man, and the Tin Man costume didn't allow for him to sit, so they got a board for him to lean on to rest. I mean,
Where's my board?
yeah. Board stat.
Yeah.
But
you're gonna have to lay me down at some point. Just
yeah,
a nap.
maybe 1939 grips were not as available to help with something like that. Like maybe a Today grip would. I don't know. Right. I feel like if for whatever reason, even though we all know this costume couldn't exist today, I feel like there'd be more helpful people. You know, I mean, you're essentially like a turtle on its back in a thing like that. So that wasn't even the worst part. The the silver makeup had aluminum dust in it, and it caused a severe allergic reaction. And he was rushed to the hospital where he had a collapsed lung from inhaling the aluminum dust. And that knocked him out completely as far as working on the project. So actor Jack Haley stepped in and took over and became the Tin Man we know today.
Did they use the same makeup?
It seems like
he just wasn't allergic.
It seems like they did, and it just didn't affect
just
him as
slapped it on
badly.
the other guy too. They're like, meh.
I mean, I'm gonna be a broken record by saying this, but 1939, I'm pretty sure they were like,
yes.
I guess the next guy will just see if it has
Hey, we had to fire him because he had sensitive skin. You up for it?
Right.
Yeah.
So Buddy Ebsen would later become famous as Jed Clampett of the Beverly Hillbillies. And I just want to be clear that I was not named after that. Joey Skeptical. Zoe Skeptical. I just called you Joey. Jesus.
Same diff.
Yeah. The little person playing Toto was wearing a costume made from a real dog. I'm just kidding, y'all.
Pause. That would.
But Toto did have it better than the humans, and we'll mention a little more in a bit.
Did he? Okay, well, yeah.
Judy Garland was given extremely tight corsets to help keep her figure more childlike, as it was reported. And for all of these actors, because of the way they needed to light these early days of Technicolor, the sets averaged about 100 degrees. So take everything I just said.
That's just from lighting.
And this is just the set itself is like 100 degrees.
Yeah.
Also, this wasn't in the research, but I'm also pretty dang sure that 1939, you didn't have central AC either. So I don't know how you would be cooling off a set that was that hot. I guess you just didn't.
Big fans, maybe.
Yeah. Oof. That's a musty stage. Okay, so keeping in mind that the difficulty of the costumes and the makeup, these actors are stuck in those looks for 13 hours a day on average. And I mean, we're going to talk more about it later, but I just wanted to put in the note with what we've said so far. Can you imagine that happening today? It's laughable.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the horrible abuse of Judy Garland. So this poor girl, when you start reading this kind of stuff, it's not a shock why her life was a tragic wreck. I mean, 1930s, wild time. So actors did not have rights and protections like today, as being obvious with what we're saying here.
Because how old was she in this?
16.
14. Okay.
Yeah. At the time of shooting, I believe she was 16.
Yeah.
So, they were treated like animals at times, sometimes worse. The studios back in these days were absolutely horrible to child actors especially, and because of the large demands put on these kids, Judy Garland, for example, was on a diet of cigarettes, coffee, cottage cheese, chicken soup, what they referred to as pep pills, and sleeping pills. And those pep pills, by the way, are amphetamines. And she was 16 and already addicted to amphetamines by the time she came on to do Wizard of Oz. And I'm also speculating here, but I feel like that chicken soup was really more like a chicken broth with some bits in it, because this is, again, the end of the Depression era. I don't feel like because otherwise it's like
It wasn't like Campbell's Hardy.
right. And we don't want to fatten her up, we need to keep her lean. And so, here's the worst chicken soup you've ever had.
Yep.
You got to keep her lean and stringy. I have it in the writing here. So you'll see right there, Zoe, would you read this part? This is a quote that is addressing Victor Fleming in an infamous moment on set one day. But would you read that part?
I will. When Judy Garland couldn't stop breaking into giggles at the pseudo-menacing advance of Bert Lair's Cowardly Lion, Fleming escorted her off the yellow brick road, said, "Now, darling, this is serious," slapped her on the cheek, then ordered, "Now go in there and work." Oy vey.
Mm-hmm. You can keep going.
Apparently, Fleming felt terrible about slapping Garland after the incident and started saying that somebody on the crew should punch him.
Punch
him. Oh, it's like, this is not very threatening.
You
Should punch him.
Yeah. He actually thought he was dreaming when he slapped her, so he asked for somebody to pinch him.
No. Garland overheard this and said, "I won't do that, but I'll kiss your nose." And then she did.
And
yeah,
anyone think that's a little weird?
Weird. What? What is
that how wholesome she was still in her childlike way? Or I don't know. Because again, broken record 1939. I mean, the fact that he's like, "Now, darling, this is serious," slap. You're just talking a different way. So maybe that wouldn't have seemed as weird back then as it would be by today's standards? ? But it's weird.
It's weird.
I think we can all say it's weird.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird now, and that's what matters.
Yeah. I couldn't find out if a crew member ever did punch him. I was really hoping the answer was yes. Like a good nut punch, just drop to a knee with an uppercut to the balls. Yeah. And then when he doubles over with a "why?" and I'm like, "Hey, you didn't say where," and then crew member doesn't get fired. Anywho.
It was the Tin Man.
Yeah.
With that metal aluminum dust punch. So in a 2017 memoir from former Judy Garland husband Sid Luft, and I didn't bother to look out which husband he was in the order of husbands, but she had a lot of husbands. Mm-hmm. But they were married for a fairly significant amount of time. I want to say 13-ish years. The memoir was titled "Judy and I, My Life with Judy Garland." He claimed in this that Garland had complained multiple times to him over the years about how the Munchkins would sexually harass her during filming, which included groping her, shoving their hands under her skirt, etc. This is because I'm about to go into some Munchkin talk.
Which I think we all know them.
Yeah, well, but out of context, that sounds even weirder, Munchkin talk.
Yeah.
But not that kind of Munchkin talk. So there's a lot of wild rumors about what was going on with the Munchkins. This is the only thing that has somewhat corroboration of truth. So a lot of stuff I left out of all this rumor stuff because I figured we could maybe talk about it at a different time when we're talking about rumors, but maybe saving that for another episode. I'm trying to keep us somewhat with facts as best as we can. So most of these Munchkins that were found for this were in their 40s or older, and they were German because I think it was some kind of like German troop that had gotten hired to do this thing. But I did read where there was a lot of excitement for a lot of these people because they had never been around this many other people with similar conditions. So I think there was some like rabble-rousey kind of thing going on. But the only thing that had somewhat other confirmation is that there were a few that seemed to be drinking excessively, but it was only like a small handful of them. And that is one person's account of remembering back. And if I remember correctly, that person was the last surviving Munchkin, who at the time was 97 or something like that. But anyway, I do recommend that if that's something that interests you, of going down the rabbit hole of Munchkin insanity and partying and debauchery and all these things, I then therefore recommend you should definitely go look it up if it piques your interest. Now, this is where I said I was going to say one more thing about Toto. So the last thing on the Munchkins, they were each paid $50 a day. Toto the dog got $125 a day.
Good.
And what I love is that every source.
So the owner.
So yes. Okay. So you're going to what I was about to say. every source, the phrasing of it was Toto got 125 a day. It never said Toto's owners or anything. And so I'm visually imagining this dog, like when they say cut, the dog gets up on its two hind legs and now it's like,
he's smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, it's smoking a cigarette, and it's like, he only takes cash, so they're having to pay him in cash at the end or something like that.
Just that he's got it buried in holes all over the yard.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not doing a damn thing till I get my 125. So anyway, that said, I'm going to move us on to what I had referred to as Witchgate 1939. So Margaret Hamilton is the actress that played the Wicked Witch of the West. And she had an absolutely horrific experience during filming. Again, lawsuits galore if this had been any newer. But also to kind of chime into the lack of respect that these actors had back then. It's just a night and day difference from what we have today. So Margaret received second and third degree burns from a pyrotechnic event gone wrong. And if you see there, Justin, if you want to read that part, this is addressing the incident going wrong.
So they tried the scene 4 times, but things kept going wrong and Fleming was losing his patience. Hamilton recalled him telling her, "I want this shot done right and done right now." In the next take, the flames and the smoke came before she was safely below set. She suffered second-degree burns on her face and third-degree burns on her hand. To make matters worse, the green makeup covering her body was copper-based and toxic if absorbed. So Hamilton's raw, burned flesh had to be thoroughly cleaned with acetone. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then that last thing, quoting Hamilton, years later, she was quoted saying, "I'll never, as long as I live, have anything that takes my breath away like that pain." And end quote. Can only imagine.
Yeah.
So
I've gotten burnt like a little bit. And, and on
like
your
a
face. Oh, and in makeup.
Like a tiny cigarette ash falling on you.
Ooh. Or like a hot pan on your that kind of thing. And it's always it's startling and it hurts and it sucks. Poor woman.
I kept her separate from the main hero characters because her situation's so unique. But the fact that her makeup was a toxic makeup that had to be daily thoroughly cleaned off of her body so that she wouldn't get a poisoning from the makeup put on her is crazy enough.
Also, if absorbed, what about her eyeballs?
Or
what I mean?
Skin still absorbs. I mean,
Was all makeup originally just made from toxic metals?
I think so. Just lead and
definitely a question we're going to be asking aluminum. A makeup rep.
At this point, they're just using house paint to paint,
pretty much.
What do you?
Pretty much.
It's the only thing that sticks to the sweat.
Yeah.
Hey, if you know a better way to do it, I'd like to know. So this put her in the hospital for weeks, and rather than sympathy and flowers and get well, instead the studio execs were not happy. They instead kept asking how soon she could be back, how much longer you're going to be there. Nothing about her, how she's healing or anything like that. Because again, this is how people are being treated at this time. Mm-hmm. Upon her return, they wanted to do another scene that involved a pyrotechnic. And she very correctly refused to do any more stunt type work like that. And that was a very smart move because that other scene, her stunt girl was terribly injured in another failed pyro stunt.
What happened to her?
Well, the
exact same burns.
No, her burns, I believe, were on her thigh, going on her leg. She also had, I'm trying to remember, something fell on her at another point too, and she did extensive damage to her shoulder and arm. It's almost like the only worst thing than being an actor at this time was a stunt person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, the dog's doing fine. So, Also fun.
But it was the same dog the whole time, huh? Never.
Only 5 Totos were used in the making of the film.
Stop it. Are you
Yeah,
serious?
no.
I always assume that anytime I see
Like those older
especially
movies,
the
it
old
could
movies, I'm
definitely
like,
be 5 Totos.
I'm like,
They
they,
were going
kept
through
that
'em.
dog in a box, like, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were going through them like Spinal Tap drummers.
Yeah.
But Toto's real name was Terry, and Dorothy was in love with Terry the dog, and she had asked several times if she could have Terry when the show was over, and Terry's owner said, absolutely not. This dog is making me $125 a day. Are you fucking crazy? I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what she was told.
I thought you were going to say, so they cooked the dog and fed her
It's
some Toto soup.
Yes, to keep her lean and stringy.
I'll give you one of his stunt doubles.
Yeah. Yeah, it was actually a Toto stunt double dog that was used to make the soup. I mean, I didn't do the thing I normally look up today money, but $125 a day in 1939 is probably pretty good money, I would assume. I mean, $1,000 a day, maybe something like that. So yeah, that owner was not giving up that dog.
So it's his dog. Why would he? I guess back then you could just ask somebody, hey, can I have your pet?
Right.
Can that be mine now?
That's not how you guys got your pets.
No,
What are you talking
I got mine on the black market like a normal person.
Just waltzed up to people. Gotta have that.
2 kidneys for my dog. Totally worked. Joke's on them because they're monkey kidneys. So the last thing I couldn't find a good like category to put this into, but I just want to address the further insane behind the scenes that was the Wizard of Oz. So the last thing I wanted to bring up, which is something that I think everyone sort of knows a little bit about, but it's the snowing in the poppy field scene. That snow
Like fiberglass?
is 100% asbestos.
Oh, that's what it is.
100% Colombian pure asbestos. Like,
They couldn't use anything non-toxic on this show.
I mean, it's kind of like the Conqueror thing where it's like when they did the reshoots, and so Howard Hughes had that irradiated soil brought to Burbank, and it was like, wow, you somehow managed to just go another step in horrible, and it's so unintentional. But it's just too funny by today's, because it's so horrible, but it's just, you know, I mean, it's...
They're like, you got a better way to make a movie. We're abusing children here.
I did want to throw in some other randos for y'all, because I just didn't have a good spot for these. But the horses in the Emerald City were colored. I don't know if y'all recall this or not, but they decided to use Jell-O to cover them. And
Oh, sure. They're like green and purple. And all
guess
that.
what? It was a little problematic because the horses kept licking the Jell-O off themselves.
Wait, so they used safe Jell-O on the horse.
On the animals, again, the animals that got, you know, because copper paint wouldn't have worked on the horse
Yeah.
for some reason I don't know the answer to.
It's the hair. I can't wait to get a makeup person in here to find out. Yeah.
The absolutely iconic song, Judy Garland's rendition of Over the Rainbow, was almost cut out of the film multiple times. They kept going back and forth about cutting it for length reasons, and they ended up keeping it in. Glad they did, because it won Best Song. And also is, you know, one of the most iconic scenes in the movie. I guess the last kind of rando thing, I'm trying to see, there was a lot of like, I mean, you can get into a lot of technical stuff that's behind the scenes that you can look up later. There was a lot of tricks they had to do with early Technicolor, which is kind of cool, but it doesn't really apply because we're only talking about horrific abuse. But it is fascinating of that early world. So I just did want to bring attention to it because it's kind of interesting. So like the ruby slippers were actually silver, but it's just the way they were able to manipulate to make things look correct with the Technicolor. In reality, it's almost like a colorblind person was doing I don't know. It's kind of, but it was fascinating because I kept getting derailed when I was looking at that stuff.
So the camera picks it up in one color, and you have to light it a certain way for it to be picked up.
Exactly,
red.
which is what's going back to that whole 100-degree sets. Oh, I did have it. I didn't realize. The Munchkins troupe were called the Singer Midgets, named for their manager, Leo Singer, which is hilarious.
Oh, 1939. You can't see that.
Well, and I was thinking they were going to be like a singing troupe.
Leave that out.
But it's not even that they're a singing troupe. It's just the guy's name. Oh, man. But one of the attractions of them coming was to escape Nazi Germany.
So good.
Yeah. Then I guess kind of like sort of finding a way to bring this to a close. The thing that I thought would be kind of funny for us to kind of talk about a little bit is, I guess I'll say this is the most watched film and simultaneously one of the most abusive stories I've ever heard in a film world of all time. So wanted to ask y'all a little bit about, knowing all of this now, how does that make you feel? I mean, I think we try to separate, normally I talk about separating the person from the job, but this is almost separating the horror from the iconic movie. Does it tarnish it a little bit for you, or you feel like you're able to still compartmentalize it enough, or will you never see Wizard of Oz the same again?
I kind of always knew this.
The Judy Garland stuff for sure.
I knew that. Yeah, I knew the Judy Garland stuff, and then of course the the Munchkins rumors. But also, I'm not like watching Wizard of Oz every year or seeking it out. So I just kind of see it for exactly.
Didn't you tell me it was your favorite Laserdisc?
Oh, well,
Laserdisc.
keep that off the podcast. So, yeah, I didn't know about the Wicked Witch. It's horrifying. That poor woman.
Not familiar with that. That one was really shocking. I mean, I think I was more shocked by the degree of her injuries than I was shocked by the studio people being horrible and rushing her back. As weird as that sounds, it's like I'm used to hearing old stories of horrible execs, so it didn't shock me as much. It's
frankly, I've seen that before. Someone gets hurt, and of course, oh, you okay? But you see them all quickly not actually caring. They just want to make the movie.
I mean,
but no, second degree, third degree burns. Ouchie.
Yeah. I mean, this is a total rumor that I can look into more later, but I had heard more than one occasion over the years that Bruckheimer had an assistant that I think he was getting on a plane or something like that, and the assistant like tripped and fell on the steps and broke their leg. And when he looked back at her, he said something like, "You're fired. Now I need a new assistant," or something like that. And it was just, I don't know how true it is. I'll be clear about that, allegedly. But it is one of those things that, again, going to some of these insanely top execs, modern or past, there are people that are like that, unfortunately. That's how you get the Harvey Weinsteins of the world.
Well, it's why we have these laws in place that you can't just fire someone because they got hurt.
Yeah.
You can't do that. That's cruel. It's not their fault.
Look at the SAG stuff.
Hurt or sick or whatever,
There was a time where SAG was fighting to stop this, which was literal abuse. Now they fight to make sure that they're compensated for living in overly expensive places, but and getting their share of a giant pie. But I mean, there was a time that they were fighting just to not be put at risk.
to be exposed to toxic chemicals.
Or be exposed to toxic chemicals. Yeah. Or have toxic chemicals rubbed all over them.
Yeah. 85 years ago,
Yeah. Which is also crazy to think about.
Yeah, when you guys were born.
Which is why I was too young to remember this. And I can't speak for myself, but Justin, you sound amazing for your age.
Thank you.
But I mean, obviously, a lot of this activity would be considered criminal by today's standards. I think it's kind of fun to think about the litigation side of this a little bit. That, I mean, this is just what we've talked about, and you're already talking about, I don't know, upwards of 40 lawsuits. I mean, something in that neighborhood.
Sure, we weren't there on set. We don't know. We don't know the half of it.
I mean, we certainly, in 1939, you're not hearing about a crew member that got hurt on set. So there could have been multiple crew members that died in the making of this movie, and it was not even reported at this
Sure,
time.
we know about the actors because they talk about it.
They at least
Their
had
husbands
voices.
Talk about it. They have voices. They're being interviewed, you know, whatever. But yeah, crew.
I can guarantee that electrician or grip did not have a voice to say what happened to them at that time. No one pays you to think. Stop screaming, you're ruining the take. Drag this man out of here and get me a new gaffer.
Shoot him on the spot.
Shoot him outside. Oh, God.
This one's not working. Take him out back and shoot him.
2 days to retirement.
He's sweating.
Did you know any of this stuff? Justin, did you know any of this Wizard of Oz?
I didn't know. This one kind of blew my mind. I didn't know a lot of this stuff. I knew some of the stuff about Judy Garland. I had heard a little bit of that stuff, but yeah, no, this one kind of tarnished it for me, man.
Yeah.
And I will say that I don't know if anybody remembers that. I think it was our first episode or something. It was your story. It was about one of the flying monkeys.
Oh yeah.
Wizard of Oz. Yeah. Now it makes sense. Now I get his sense of entitlement.
Yeah. I was one of the flying monkeys.
It was a tough job.
Yeah.
Can't wait to eat that.
It's like saying, I went to World War II.
Yeah. I couldn't find any fun flying monkey trivia that was. I mean, Munchkin, yes, but not flying monkey.
Oh, those monkeys were probably in like the smallest cage ever, smoking cigarettes and.
Yeah, I only know that they ran a bordello, but other than that, I don't know anything else. That was surprising. They seem to be kind of okay comparatively to some other stuff. One thing I wanted to say that was just kind of. I don't know how much it's coincidence, but it was just kind of a funny like afterthought to this entire thing. Liza Minnelli, daughter of Judy Garland, who also was married multiple times, at one point was married to Jack Healy Jr. or whatever, the Tin Man. So the son of the Tin Man and the daughter of Judy Garland were married at one point in time. I just thought that was kind of weird, fun, random trivia.
Yeah.
So was it a Wizard of Oz reunion and they attended?
Had stuff in common.
I guess. I don't know. So
It
anyway,
was a Craigslist ad.
Yeah.
Early Craigslist.
Looking for children of the cast of Wizard.
Yeah. What would that be? Child of actress seeking child of actor.
Yeah.
FWB.
Yeah. You have passed down trauma like me? Yeah.
Did you grow up with an insane parent?
Yeah.
That was wrecked by studios? So yeah, I don't know if anything y'all want to add to this crazy. I mean, this one's kind of a doozy just because it was a little bit more of the I think the child abuse is what was kind of the worst of it. But anything else y'all want to add?
Yeah, I'm sorry about
those early
Judy.
Hollywood lives. There's
Sorry,
a lot
Judy.
of tragedy in those.
Yeah. This one's sad.
Yep.
Yeah. We're just all sad now.
I'm glad we have evolved beyond all of these issues.
That
basically,
is,
for the most part.
That is something I'm glad you said that, because that is something that when I'm looking at these, I am very grateful for my current world, that normally maybe I'm more typical, like a lot of film people, I'll gripe and complain and stuff, but we really are very lucky when you start looking at these things. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a whole list of stuff, but we've talked off mic before about, maybe if we go beyond Rust, do we kind of cover like some tragedy deaths and stuff that have happened to crew and to, cast over the years. And I mean, safety, that's something that, I mean, here's a perfect example where clearly safety is not as much of a thing as it is by today's standards. And it's just, this is night and day difference as far as like Wizard of Oz to the present. I mean, what was it? The Conquer was a lot of more like ignorance, I feel. And then Super Mario Brothers was just poor planning at a very giant scale. But I mean, this one is just, I mean, this is abuse. There's no other way to say it.
Negligence.
Yeah, negligent abuse. So yeah, I think that.
So yeah.
I have no segue for that, so I'm gonna say sure. Let's get out of here because I don't know, Zoe. You look like you got something to say over there.
I do. I certainly do. We want to hear from you, the audience. Do you have a behind-the-scenes story? Maybe you work in the industry, or maybe you had a run-in with reduction. You know, you live in New Orleans, New York, whatever, and some PA stopped you on the way to work, and it was annoying. We want to hear about it. We want to hear about all of it. We love all the stories. Write us, and maybe we'll read it on the show. Or maybe you just want to tell us that you love us, or you really hate us, and you want to fact check us because we're wrong about a lot of things. You can troll us, whatever you want to do. You might even want to guess where Joe or Chris are on any given day of the week. You can do that by emailing us at filmfolklorepodcast@gmail.com. It's filmfolklorepodcast@gmail.com. We do indeed want to hear from you. You can also find us on the social media. Instagram is Film Folklore Podcast. Facebook group is Film Folklore. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, @The Film Folk. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us. We really want to hear from you. It's very important to us. Again, we work in the entertainment business, so we need a lot of validation. We're very pathetic, sad people, and we really want to be reviewed. We want to know your honest opinion, and it means a lot to us, because you guys mean a lot to us. And for any of you that really like us and have some change burning holes in your pockets and have, just any money at all, like a credit card, we set up a donation with PayPal and Patreon. Links are in the show notes of this episode and our website. Money helps us do more fun things, and we want to entertain you. Money helps you do more fun things, which helps us do more fun things, which is also helping you have fun. And it would be really nice. And we love you.
All right, thanks everybody for joining us today. Bye.
Bye.
Somewhere.